Tampi Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing this morning with Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 30, 10, 14, 30. And we heard a really fantastic summary of everything that's taken place in this chapter so far. Compliments of Jiva Goswami. And there's one more commentary from Krama Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, and then we'll continue with text 31. Translation, text 30. My dear Lord, I therefore pray to be so fortunate that in this life as Lord Brahma, or in another life, wherever I take my birth, I may be counted as one of your devotees. I pray that wherever I may be, even among the animal species, I can engage in devotional service to your lotus feet. Jiva Goswami writes, it's very short, Krama Sandarbha. Let that be, O Lord, my greatest fortune in this birth, or born as an animal elsewhere, or preferably in Braja, is to take birth as one of your devotees and serve your lotus feet with full devotion. It should be understood that until the end of the chapter, these prayers are a form of offering respects, ultimately, to the form of Krishna. I am not eager to be born elsewhere in a dear body, but I desire to be born as a devotee of some sort in Braja. So we heard that this describing of the opulences of the personality of Godhead is now shifting to the sweetness of the personality of God, the sweetness in Braja. Text 31. O Almighty Lord, how greatly fortunate are the cows and ladies of Vrindavan. The commentary says there's a sequence. Greater fortune, increasing greater fortune. Cows and ladies, the nectar of whose breast milk you have happily drunk to your full satisfaction, taking the form of their calves and children. All the Vedic sacrifices performed from time immemorial up to the present day have not given you as much satisfaction. Vishwanath Chakra, there's no BBT commentary. Vishwanath writes, quote, as an unqualified person, I have prayed to become your devotee. It is your will to fulfill it. It is unsuitable for me to pray for the elevated stage of your devotees engaged in spontaneous attraction of Vatsalya and other moods. I can only praise them, unquote. This is expressed in 2 verses. Quote, the cows and gopis of Braja are extremely fortunate. The word, oh, expresses extreme surprise. You, with your Satchit Ananda body, take the form of the cowherd boys and calves, have drunk the nectarian milk from their bodily breasts with extreme bliss. With each mouthful, the bliss increased. Ativa Muddha. You could not even tolerate the time it took to milk the cows when you took the form of the calves. You took the form of the cowherd boys. Otherwise, it would not be possible to drink the milk of so many different mothers. And, O powerful one, Vibho, you took many forms out of extreme greed in order to drink. And among them all, you could not even miss the nectar of one breast. As they gave you such bliss, there is no doubt about their bodies also being purely Satchit Ananda. And all the sacrifices from time immemorial to the present day performed by myself, Shiva, and others with perfect mantras and actions were not able to satisfy you. And Jiva Goswami writes, quote, I should remain satisfied in myself, but you seek to serve me. But you are Brahma, and my people are cowherds. How is it possible to associate with them? Unquote. Fearing such a response by the Lord, Brahma replies with this verse. So I'll say it again. Krishna, paraphrasing Krishna's inner contemplations. I, Krishna, should remain satisfied in myself, but you seek to serve me. But you are Brahma, and my people are cowherds. How is it possible to associate with them? Fearing such response by the Lord, Brahma replies with this verse. Their glory is greater than all others' glory. He gives a specific example to illustrate, and by that indicates his own desire. He uses the word aho first to indicate great astonishment. The cowherd women have attained the acme of success, ati danyaha. Who are they? They are most excellent, Ramanya, since they satisfied the Lord by feeding him from their breasts. Among many others, no one has such good fortune. How are they fortunate? O Lord, fully satisfied in yourself, Vibho, you drank their milk. The great quality is shown, colon. All sacrifices performed from beginningless time in the past, since the Vedas are without beginning, till now, cannot satisfy you, since you are fully satisfied in yourself, but still you drank the cowherd women's milk. Although you drink other nectar and live through sacrifice, you are not interested in the sacrifices or the sacrificers. Oh, therefore, what is this nectar? It is from their breasts. Krishna, by his unique nature, tasted the special rasa coming from their bodies, and he drank it. He actually sucked it with his mouth, and he sucked it intensely, ativa, and with the highest pleasure, muda. And he became millions of calves and boys out of greed to drink it all. Each word shows greater and greater astonishment. This good fortune was not just an occasional event for the highly qualified women of Vraja, and it was not according to methods of karmakanda. Your greatness in this regard astonishes me. This action was continuous among the people of Vraja. Well, at least continuous for 1 year. But it's just an example of this continuous sweetness. So we've passed over all that heavy philosophy stuff, and now we're in the sweetness part. But sambandha is necessary to get a proper perspective on the nature of Krishna, because if it's just the sweetness part, we might not get it right or misunderstand somehow. Krishna Tattva, Ye Krishna Tattva Se Guru Hoy, is mysterious and filled with apparent contradictions or contradictions. the inconceivable potency, achintya shakti, of the personality of Godhead is described elsewhere in this 10th canto as simultaneously existing contradictory shaktis within the Supreme Lord. And sometimes he exhibits this one, sometimes he exhibits that one, and sometimes he exhibits both of them at the same time. Whether he exhibits them one or the other or both, they're always within him. He is the source of everything, and everything includes everything. So there's this and there's that, which appear to be contradictory as within him. He is capable. There's nothing he's not capable of. Nothing he's not capable of. But he doesn't always do everything or anything. He does according to his sweet will. And with Brahma, so we've been hearing, it's a nice sequence, right? Mercy allows knowledge. Knowledge invites worship. Worship invites realization, or brings realization. And they're all features of bhakti from the beginning. Bhakti, 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 bhakti. And different gradations or stages. So Brahma got mercy. And he got more mercy, he got more mercy, and he's asking for devotional service, lifetime after lifetime, and in association with those engaged in devotional service, lifetime after lifetime, whatever the position. He's not looking for liberation, he's not looking for elevation, he doesn't consider he's the topmost elevated person in the whole universe. He's not proud of that or thinking it's something so special. It's devotion is special. So the relativeness of material elevation and spiritual access to Krishna, they don't compare really. And because he's very intelligent and he's got mercy, and therefore he has realization, he's worshiping the Lord. I like this phrase that we heard. All of these, from beginning to end, it's glorification of the form of Krishna. There's different ways of expressing the same thing, but the form of Krishna includes everything. And Brahma is giving like a really big panorama of the form of Krishna is the source of everything. And the focus for a number of verses coming up is going to go to the aspect of Krishna's sweetness. And the good fortune, although he has received mercy to understand so many things, he doesn't have access to that same extra mercy that the residents of Vrindavan have. So that starting point, verse 31, goes to the mothers, the cows, and the mothers of the cowherd boys. And Krishna wasn't just enjoying the material feature, he was enjoying especially their love given to him in that form. They desired to give affection to him and love and service to him in that form, and he was eagerly accepting it. And we're hearing specifically always. So they gave their form, they gave their affection, obviously in different ways besides this one way. And because of the intensity of their affection, Krishna was enjoying. And because Krishna was enjoying, they were enjoying. And it's a transcendental enjoying. I mean, mothers enjoy being with their small children. And so reciprocally, small children enjoy being with their mothers. Relationship is a two-way street. So what to speak of the transcendental happiness? Because that's been touched on several times. Brahma is saying, I can't understand the happiness that you're experiencing. Only you can understand it. But he's honoring it. And our commentators are also touching on the happiness, the eagerness. As they were eager to serve Krishna that way, he was eager to receive that loving service from them. And he had the capacity to figure out how to do it. Just manifest likenesses of the boys that take care of it. They wanted, he reciprocated. And he reciprocated in a way that only he could do. Who else could do what he did? The mention in the commentary that read is millions. Going way back in some earlier sections, I think it's chapter 12, that's describing Krishna and the cowherd boys and the calves getting ready to go to the forest. There's the getting ready part. And then when they depart, the commentary gives a number of how many. And it gives some finite number of boys in the trillions, a lot of cowherd boys. But, Vrindavan can accommodate. And then it gives some number for the calves, and it gives, the commentary gives calculation, and it ends up as a sankhya, and a sankhya means you can't count. There's that many. But how do you get your counting goes up to a certain point, and then after a certain point, it's a sankhya. That's how many calves. So more than millions, trillions upon trillions upon trillions. A lot of calves, a lot of cows, a lot of cowherd boys, and Krishna manifested as each one of them. There must have been a lot of mothers. There's that many cowherd boys. Vrindavan had a big population, and it wasn't urban. It was rural. They have lots of land for the cows. So how does it all fit? That's a whole other topic. That gives how many kroshas, how many square, acres or square miles or something. And just for spiritual purposes, space can expand without constraint, or space can contract without constraint. And a nice example of that is Prabhupada was asked, how did Krishna go all the way from Nandagram to Kaliyagat so quickly? And Prabhupada's answer was, Vrindavan is shaped like a lotus, and sometimes the lotus is closed, and sometimes it's open. So when the lotus is closed, the distance between point A and point B becomes easier. That was his answer. I mean, he didn't say point A, point B, but when the lotus closes, then one can move from one place to another very quickly. And besides, he doesn't need to take time to do things. He had the inconceivable potencies. Time is quite flexible. Space is quite flexible. Speed is quite flexible. There's a nice description I think it's Rupa Goswami, I forget who's the author, that describes one of the qualities of Krishna, that although he was, it's the gratitude quote, although Krishna was so far away from Dwarka to Hastinapur, what's the distance? From Dwarka to Delhi. That's a big distance. He was far away, Dwarka to Delhi. But when he heard Draupadi call with such feeling, He felt indebted to her, and instantly he appeared. Instantly he appeared, did no time and space, because he's Krishna. It's all under his direction, so he can move from Dwarka to Hastinapur in a flash, in less than a fraction of a moment. He has a fast vimana called all pervasiveness, and he can manifest instantly in his original form, or his Dwarka form, or whatever form he likes. So we're careful not to get too creative with, well, if he can do anything, then what about this and that? He does what he does because he wants to do what he does. And so he does it. But he does through the agency of his Shaktis. And so in one sense he does nothing. In another sense he can do anything. You know, the mystery of Krishna Tattva is really mind-bending. It just doesn't work if you're stuck in the binary processor mind. It just doesn't work. Like, yeah, right. But I just heard this morning, Prabhupada again was quoting, Jiva Goswami says, by accepting and not accepting, by accepting that the source of everything has unlimited and inconceivable potencies, Krishna, then one can easily understand him. And if one doesn't accept, then there's no possibility of understanding him. So of course, the impersonalists see you can't have Shaktis, because then you have the possessor of Shaktis and Shaktis. So it doesn't fit the model. So he's impotent. He's a Brahman. But the Bhagavan conception, he has unlimited and inconceivable potencies. And then there's some idea of those potencies. So how does one know the unlimited potencies? You can't, but you can know to some degree, just like we heard from yesterday's or text 30, to some degree, the unlimited can be understood by the limited, by the mercy factor. The mercy factor is bhakti, and through the mercy factor, he reveals himself. And there's some steps in between, but he reveals himself, and then one can know from direct experience. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. The knowledge of bhakti is meant for direct perception, not by material perception, but spiritual perception. And we should be eager for that spiritual perception. And the path to that spiritual perception or realization is the path of bhakti. And doing what we're doing, hearing these, the previous section was, exhaustive on the philosophy side, and now comes the sweetness side. And that's part of Krishna Tattva. And just hearing Krishna Tattva, Harikatha, it awakens, strengthens, nourishes the desire to be in service to the Supreme Great, to the point where his greatness becomes irrelevant because he's so loving. That's the Brijvasi position. And the gift of Lord Chaitanya is to encourage us this way. And then comes our everyday activity where there's chaos out there. And how do you maintain equilibrium in the midst of chaos all around? And some of it's very proximate. So how do you maintain equilibrium? How do you maintain the same method? To maintain is the same way as you get there. You dedicate yourself to these wonderful topics, and you're there, even in the midst of turmoil. Okay, 8 o'clock. So I'm looking forward to this next section. I was getting a little worried about brain fatigue for the audience. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Maharaj, and in this text 30, it has been, I think it is mentioned that about deer. Deer is the lowest animal, so what is the significance of saying like that, like about deer?
Gopinath, could you understand what he said? Me either. Could you understand what he said? Yes, it mentions. It doesn't. Okay, thank you. It was discussed yesterday evening, but the word is not deer. It's translated as deer. It's a lower species, meaning an animal. But in Vrindavan there are deer, and the commentary says Brahma noticed that deer were licking Krishna's body, and he was feeling, oh, if I can lick Krishna's body. So it was like that. It's a lower, whatever is higher, lower form. It was the literal, and then there comes this other possible rendering of the word. Okay?
As we're entering into the sweetness section of Krishna's glories, it seems like having heard his greatness, his opulence, it increases the wonder.
Yes.
Of how, because for someone who's not great, to be sweet is not as wonderful as someone who's so great to be so sweet.
Yes, 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 it increases the wonder, for sure. And the wonder, just to comment on that, the wonder is a secondary rasa. It's astonishment. It's a secondary rasa. So he, Brahma, is entering into that realm. Although he's not fully immersed, he's being stimulated into that realm. And we'll hear, where all of that goes. Yeah, it increases wonder. How wonderful. Astonishing.
Guru Maharaj, you were saying that Lord Brahma is not asking for liberation, but for the opportunity to be engaged in Krishna's devotional service.
Yeah.
So going back to the verse where Lord Brahma is saying that when one dedicates one body, mind, and words, then the kingdom of God becomes his rightful claim.
Right.
So we are to understand that he's not actually praying for or telling us to aspire for that position of attaining the kingdom of God, like Goloka, but it's the engagement in devotional service no matter what the situation, maybe externally.
The last part was garbled, but my comment on the part that I could understand from what you said was going back to Godhead isn't like getting in a vimana and going somewhere. Going back to Godhead is consciousness. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. He was in the spiritual world. He was conducting himself as one amongst us, but he was in the spiritual world, moving amongst us. That's back to Godhead. Let's go back to Godhead. Like that idea. Next? Something else? That's it. Back there?
you were saying devotional service, and sometimes it feels like the time is limited and I'm tiny, and there is like so much service that comes. And I was thinking one has to be very discriminating in what services one picks in terms of what is nourishing to oneself and what kind of association one needs at that point in time, and so many different aspects that need to be considered when we say a yes to the service. That was one part. And also the second part I was thinking is sometimes some people overcommit and underdo because they just can't say no to any service, since hey, it's devotional service, how can I say no? But then they may not have the time to do the service. So
Could you help me understand how this sounds like a comment, and how does it connect to what we just read this morning?
So you're saying the way to get there is devotional service.
Way do we get back to Godhead? Yeah.
And I was thinking, while we are traversing our way there are also some choices that we need to make and some considerations that
Sure.
one needs
Yes, we
to
make
do.
choices. And we should make choices that, well, we should make choices under guidance, because my selection may be simply conditional, or more conditional than it needs to be. Conditional in the sense of, I'll do it because I like, or a little higher, I'll do it because I think this will help me at this particular time, which is what I understood you were just saying. And we don't discount those, but it's sometimes good to do things that you're not comfortable doing for purification purposes, because it's, whatever that because is. I mean, the classic is Arjuna not wanting to fight and Krishna wanting to fight, so it was, okay, I'll fight. Now, we're not going to have a direct conversation with Krishna about our choices, but that needs to be factored. If there's something that's, let's say, book distribution. Some people really like book distribution. Some people are terrified by book distribution, and some people are somewhere in between. Some people are not even going to consider it because they're too busy or something. So if I'm not comfortable with book distribution, or I think, which that's nice, but what I really need right now is da-da-da. So yes, some kinds of considerations like that. At the same time, if there's something that's so basic to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's and our disciplic successions and our founder Acharya's volition, to connect with that in some way, or let's just say somebody is not so comfortable with reading. They like to do service. They should read. You get the idea. So the selection criterion needs to broaden a little bit from what you just described. Yes, we make choices. We must. We do. Anything else up here? Krishnarchana? Yes. Krishnarchana. Haribol.
In that there's 4 categories ultimately leading to realization. The mercy, the knowledge, the worship, and the realization. Lord Brahma, in this moment in time with these verses, he's actually engaging in worship through his realizations, one could say. Would that be correct?
When we were not in the temple room and I heard you speaking into a microphone, it was so easy to understand everything. In this room, I struggled. The acoustics could be better.
Maybe I need to hold it further away. I'm not quite sure. I had it very close. Maybe further away.
Well, yes, there's better and there's worse, but then I struggle. I mean, maybe others also struggle. I'm just expressing a little frustration. I want to hear.
I'll try again.
You try again?
I'll try again. In that breakdown of the 4 categories, so there's the mercy, and then receiving knowledge, and then the progression to worship, and then after the realization.
Okay, got it.
So in this particular moment in time, particularly with these verses where Lord Brahma is having insight into Lord Krishna's great satisfaction with his relationship with the cowherd ladies, the cows, calves, one could say that he's giving his realization, it's worship. He's actually engaging in worship of Lord Krishna through his verbalizations and his insights. Yes?
Yes, I got it. So his expression of appreciation, glorification is worship through words, and that's giving him some realization and expressing his realization. That's the message. Okay, yeah. Let's go online. Oh, let's go online. We'll come back. We don't want to neglect our online people. They'll feel unhappy. We've got some feedback.
Uttama Bhakta, was one of the reasons lots of new people came and made lots of progress during Srila Prabhupada's time, that they were able to live with devotees near temples.
What was it like, is the question?
Was this one of the reasons a lot of new people came and made progress?
Well, that's one of the reasons. There's many reasons. Prabhupada's presence at particular times, the kind of detachment and the kind of inquisitiveness. Yeah, there was convergence of auspiciousness.
That's all for now.
Okay, one more. Yeah, here it comes.
We hear time and again that our main goal is to go back to Godhead, back to Krishna. But after hearing the verse 30, I think this is a higher purpose, because it demonstrates like total disattachment to the idea to go back to Godhead, some kind of interest on our part when we do our bhakti and in what we're doing in this life. Am I right?
Well, I think so. I mean, a little editing. From our position, wanting to go back to Godhead is encouraged, like anything. And going back to Godhead, from our position, may mean like getting into Vimana and going back to Godhead, as quickly as possible, because this place is really smelly. However, as one matures, then the back to Godhead picture will broaden, and it's as Brahma is saying, whatever the position, or our different Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or different Mama Janmani, Lord Chaitanya. Please just engage me in your devotional service. That's back to Godhead. It doesn't need a Vimana to take you out of this smelly place. It's the consciousness of wherever Krishna wants me to be engaged in his service. That's elevated. To take that position at this stage is premature. Or it doesn't necessarily nourish the attainment of that higher position. Because it's not real. It's not real. We are still identifying very strongly with the temporary. That's real. And so wanting to be connected. Our expression should be commensurate with our realization, and our realization is according to our worship, our practical activity. Anyway, so then you go back down that chain. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.